Well, here we are. It is Tuesday, July 11th, 2023, and this is sort of an interesting video. As many of you know, we have run a service on our website at Bitamount called the Inquiry Identification Assistant Inquiry Service, where for a small fee you send in some images, and we'll try to tell you what something is based on what we see, how old it is, what it's worth, and so forth. And every once in a while, we get something that's really a stumper. And we get a lot of them. We get hundreds of them. It's sort of breathtaking, and I love seeing this stuff. This is the thing. I'm not complaining at all. It is fascinating, the things that all of you, a lot of people turn up around the country, around the world. We never know what's coming in. And yesterday we got one that was a bit of a puzzle because it was a pot that was sold. Here it is. This was sold at Bukowski's recently, which is a part of Bottoms, and it was listed as a Kangxi period blue and white jug. Apparently, according to the buyer who sent these in once he got it, but he was puzzled by it, and he wasn't sure if they were correct in their attribution that it was Kangxi. And apparently it had been consigned. He said he knew who the consigner was somehow, and that it was a very academic collector, somebody that apparently does his research and whatnot, but he couldn't get his head around that it was Kangxi. It was something bothering him about it, and he wanted me to, let him know if I thought it was or it wasn't. So I spent a lot of time looking at this thing. I went back and forth on it. This reply was one of the longest replies we've ever done because during the video, I'm not going to show you all of it, but I'll show you the highlights of the replies because I was looking the thing up while I was doing the recording, trying to find something similar to it. I looked everywhere I could for a Chinese pot of this style. Is it Kangxi period? And of course, I got down to the foot rim, and we love to examine foot rims because they can be extremely informative. And I kept saying in the video, as you'll see, it was nothing like any Kangxi foot rim I've ever seen. And I fell into a trap on this because I didn't consider other things. And as soon as he said Kangxi and Chinese, I got stuck on the Kangxi and Chinese track, which can happen in your mind. And I'm going to show you the first reply or excerpts from it of what I went through during the process of looking at it and how we sort of go about it, and then the reply that I sent him this morning. And I hope you find it interesting. It's part of the process, and it happens a lot when you're trying to look at. We look at hundreds and hundreds of things every week, and from all sources, and we got it right, I think. But this is how it went. It's unlike any Kangxi piece I've ever seen, and the paste is not what I would expect for Kangxi porcelain right here. It's the wrong texture. It doesn't have that ivory tone. It's too coarse. It's not very smooth. Kangxi porcelain paste was most notable. One of the most notable things about it is it's extremely dense, very compacted, very, very dense, and it stays dense during the firing. It doesn't open up a little bit in the pores. This thing, it doesn't have that surface at all. And the glaze down here looks a bit too thick, too glossy, too glassy. Yeah, no, I think it was painted like a Kangxi piece, but I think it's more likely a 19th century example done in the Kangxi manner. And this cobalt, you don't see the layering waves that you expect to see on Kangxi cobalt decoration here and here, and the drawing looks a little clumsy for Kangxi. Yeah, no, I can't. I don't see this as Kangxi at all. I'm afraid to say. I don't know what you paid for it. If the seller, if Bukowski's can ask the seller, why does he think this is Kangxi? What example? If he says it just because it looks it to him, it's not a very academic. In order to label this as Kangxi, if he really is an academic type of guy, he's seen other examples that are in collections that look just like it. Not a pot or a pitcher with a handle on it, but one that's just like it. This is an open mouth pot. It never had a cover. and it looks like it looks too much like a milk jug, and they didn't make milk jugs in the Kangxi period. That's a form that didn't exist then. And I think that's what you're running into. You went to look it up probably, and you can't find another example quite like it. I would ask for some evidence of the age of this thing, because the bottom of it really looks wrong. All right, from what I'm seeing, unless it's just really strange photography, but that does not look Kangxi to me at all. It's the scale of the flowers is too big. It's not orderly enough. Um, I don't know. It doesn't look right to me, and I suspect that's why you sent it in. It's also extremely glossy, and Kangxi pieces typically aren't that glossy. So I would call and ask them why. What comp do they have for this? Where is there another one like this? Because I can't think of one. The form is just so 19th century. I can't get my head around it being Kangxi, I'm afraid. All right. Okay. Sorry to make this such a long one, but I was trying to really go through this for you. Okay. Bye bye. Hey, Kim, this is a follow-up to the email and the reply I gave you yesterday on this blue and white jug that you bought at Bukowski's that was sold as a Kangxi piece. And as you recall, I went through it in some detail why I didn't think it was Kangxi. And I thought that perhaps it was a later 19th century Chinese copy of a Kangxi example. But what was puzzling me, as I mentioned many times in the video, was that the shape and form just seemed very odd to me, as did the foot rim, the texture of the paste. And I kept looking at it and looking at it, and in the end, I just said, "Well, if it, as you know, I said that it's probably just a later Chinese example." And last night, while I was asleep, I sat bolt upright in bed, and suddenly it came to me: this is a Japanese pot. And I remembered this, the way this leaf was drawn, and I had said yesterday it didn't look right to me. There were a number of aspects to this that just didn't seem odd. They just seemed odd, as you recall, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And last night, while I was sleeping, I I got this idea about jugs that I'd seen that were Japanese that were painted nearly exactly like this one, with the exception of this slight flare to the rim. And I'm going to show you a few of them and show you what I'm talking about. Here's one, again, but doesn't flare out. Another one, another one, and also the thick handle had puzzled me in the video that I sent you. There's another one, and those are all at Sotheby's. And then there's this jar that turned up that was in a Christie's sale, and I blew it up because they didn't show a lot of the foot rims. But notice the color of this paste down here, this area right here. All right, and I have a Japanese Arita vase in my house that has the same texture. This is a 17th century Arita piece, and that's Chinese, that's Japanese clay. And when you come back over here to this, again, Japanese clay. And what I'm telling you is that here's another example of one of these jugs. Another one here. I found a pile of them, and this is where they clearly come from. Here's one that flares out slightly. These are all 17th and early 18th century examples. There is another one, again with a big thick handle on it. Here's a group of them that turned up. The one on the right particularly is getting close to yours, number 408. That's a 17th century example. And there's another one, again, with the big handle. And as you remember, we talked about the big handle on your vase. There it is, and the way it's done. And there's one with the same little knob on the end of the handle. This is in the Victoria and Albert Museum collection. And here's another one that has that same type of handle on it. Again, these are 17th century. And then going back to look at yours, this to me didn't look Chinese at all. That was one of the other things that caught my eye, and so forth. And what I've concluded is that this is a Japanese pot, and it's the type of thing that can often get confused with Chinese. But also the scale of the flowers, the way it's drawn, just looked all wrong to me to be Chinese. And I said that in the video. I said just there's something odd. The drawing just looked odd to me for a Chinese attribution. And what I think this probably is, judging by that and this is an 18th or early 19th century Arita pot that was done in the manner of this shape, but with a slightly different top to it, the way the mouth of the vase comes up. All right, and I've been looking at this for a couple hours, digging out images, trying to nail it down. And this is what my conclusion is: that this is not a Chinese vase of porcelain at all, but it's Japanese, done in the Chinese style, which the Japanese clearly did when they were first introduced to doing blue and white. A lot of their things looked like Arita wares. There was a lot of copying going on, but with innovative forms. But this form with that handle, notice the handle was apparently not decorated the way they did on the 17th century examples. But to my mind, I'm settling on the idea that this is a later 18th or early 19th century Japanese Arita pot done in the manner of 17th century Japanese Arita wares made between the 1670 and 1700 thereabouts, which were closely emulating at that time a lot of other Chinese wares and so forth. So I think that's where this lands. So Japanese Arita, late 18th, early 19th century, somewhere in there. I also went through the Ashmolean Museum collection, and there were many similar looking pots to the ones I just showed you, and you can go look at them. But I thought this would be useful to you, and that's the story. Okay, so I was wrong yesterday on this. Because I just got it in my head that it was Chinese of some kind, and I never considered that this could be a Japanese example. But it is, in my opinion. All right. Thanks. I hope you understand, and I hope you can find this useful. All right. Bye-bye. And that's the conclusion to the mystery. Sometimes when you hear something, and I think Bukowski's probably got into the same little mental trap, was that it was brought in as a Chinese thing, and they accepted it as that. They even accepted it as Kangxi. They put it in their sale, and a bidder, a person who I know is quite knowledgeable, agreed that it probably was, and they bid on it, and then they bought it, and then when they got it, they had second doubts about it. And they sent it to me, and when it was presented as Chinese, I was trying to think of how it could be Chinese, where it could have been done, and again, it illustrates the confusion that often occurs when you see certain Japanese plates that are actually Chinese, or Chinese plates that are actually look Chinese and are actually Japanese, and that back and forth. We see it most often with the Japanese Wanli copies. They are frequently misattributed to being Chinese, and unless they're looked at quite carefully, it's fairly hard to tell the difference. And this was the case, and I was mistaken on it, and it was again something that haunted me afterwards, and throughout the little clips you saw, I had some real doubts. I couldn't quite get my head around what the heck this thing is. Clearly it's antique. It's not a modern reproduction. It's just a Japanese piece that was made later. I've not been able to find the exact same type that was made during the 18th or the 19th century, but I think that's a pretty safe area to date it. Maybe it was made a little later than that, but again, Japanese and not Chinese. And this is all part of the fun of trying to figure out what this stuff is. And I take the inquiries. I want everyone to know I take these inquiries pretty seriously when I look at things, and I give my opinion on how old they are or what they are, because I like people to get good information so they can go forward with their collecting and pursuing their interests. And I wanted to clarify that with this particular person who bought this, and I thought they should know absolutely what it is they got, and I think I answered the question pretty well. So that's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes it takes sometimes it takes 24 hours for a little bit of clarity to come in, for your memory to kick in. And in my case, it happened while I was sleeping, and I got up in the morning and went down and did some research, dug out a bunch of similar examples that were Japanese, as I showed earlier, these pots here, and realized that's what this thing was modeled on. All right, that's what it was modeled on. It was modeled on earlier Japanese wares, but was produced again during some sort of revival period when there was demand for it. And that's the end of it. All right, so thanks for watching. Have a great week. We'll be back with more videos this week. But it was an interesting exercise, and I hope you enjoyed it. Okay. Thanks a lot to everybody for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We do these videos fairly often about Chinese art, Japanese art, antiques, identifying them, dating them, and then, of course, covering auctions and all the other stuff we do. So thanks again, and have a great week, everybody. All right. Bye-bye.